and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking to you about training. So we're going to be doing a little bit of myth busting and talking through some common misconceptions. So today's topic is actually the topic that I covered in my last Get It Girl event. So for those of you that were there at the end of July, this is a little bit of a refresher for you. So if there's anything that you missed or you didn't get to note down, you can go back over it today. But I mostly just wanted to go through things for those who weren't there, that want to hear a little bit about it, and I hope that it is informative and helpful for you. So our first myth is that more training equals more results. This is definitely not the case, and I find this with a lot of my clients who come to me already doing 6-7 days a week or double sessions throughout the week, and they feel like they need to keep adding more and more and more because their results stall. So you do want to make sure that you're having at least 1 or 2 rest days each week, just so that you're not overtraining, wearing yourself down. You might become fatigued and irritable if you're overtraining, and your sessions are actually going to suffer. So you're much better off doing 4 or 5 really good sessions throughout the week than to be wearing yourself down and trying to do 6, 7 or more sessions throughout the week, not allowing your muscles to recover and probably leaving you a little bit tired and cranky. So myth number 2 is that you can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. Now, this is a little bit of a tricky one because I'm not going to say it's completely impossible. There are definitely some situations where this can happen, especially if you're a beginner and you're relatively new to weight training. There is actually the chance that, you know, the training stimulus will be enough to build muscle while you're in a calorie deficit and losing fat. But essentially, in a nutshell, in order to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit, so eating less than your maintenance. And if you want to build muscle, you need to be in a calorie surplus, which is eating more than your maintenance. So you kind of can't do both of those at the same time, which makes things a little bit difficult. So if that is your goal and you wanted to build muscle and lose fat, you want to try and target things one at a time. So I would definitely recommend chatting to a coach and getting them to set you up with a solid training program and a nutrition program. But I would definitely phase it and have a period of muscle gain and then a period of fat loss to help show off the muscle that you've built. Myth number 3 is spot reduction. So I get this question all the time. How do I lose fat from X area that I hate? So unfortunately, this is not really a thing. If you're doing particular exercises to lose weight in that area, it's not really going to do a whole lot. Basically, in terms of fat loss, you have to be in a calorie deficit, so eating less than your maintenance, and that body fat's going to come off a little bit of everywhere, and depending on your genetics as well as to where you hold that fat. So in terms of targeting specific areas, doesn't really work. Doing more crunches is not going to give you abs and things like that. You kind of just need to tackle it with your nutrition as a priority and let the fat come off where it does. I know that's a heartbreaking one, so I'm a bit sorry. The only exclusion to this is that sometimes there are some trouble spots which are sleep or stress related. So I find particularly lower tummy, even if you lose fat from everywhere, sometimes your body still holds onto that stubborn fat store. And by improving sleep and stress management, sometimes it will make that trouble area a little bit easier to shift. Not a magical answer, but if you are finding that you have particular trouble areas and they're just not losing fat and you're losing fat from everywhere else and not there, try and focus on like the health aspect and then sleep and stress management, and you might find that that improves. Myth number 4, that if you're not sore, you didn't work hard enough. So I know that a lot of people are a little bit worried if they're not really sore. You'll definitely find that if you're starting a brand new training program or completely changing your training style, you will be really sore for the first week or 2, but our bodies are very smart and they adjust very quickly. So if you're not sore, don't feel like that necessarily means that you didn't work hard enough. Just make sure that you're focusing on within that session, working as hard as you can. Basically, the reason that we get sore primarily is like micro tears within our muscle cells. So yes, if you are pushing really hard, you can feel soreness, but don't think that just because you're not super sore, you didn't have a great session. This also applies to sweat. I get a lot of requests for like sweaty finishes because people just want to feel like they're dripping in sweat and they're hot and they're dead and they want to lie down at the end of their session. More sweat doesn't always mean more calories burned. It is just basically your body's way of cooling you down. It's great if you want to feel that, but don't think that you need to be sweaty in order to have had like a really good workout. Next myth is that fasted cardio burns more fat. So most of us have heard this, where doing fasted cardio or training on an empty stomach taps into your stored body fat. And look, I personally don't believe it's a thing. There's no real science to say that that is a thing. If you're in a calorie deficit and you're training, you're gonna lose body fat. There's not really a way to like speed that up. It doesn't mean that you're gonna burn more calories training fasted. And if anything, you could potentially be having the opposite effect, because I know like if I haven't eaten before a training session, I don't give 100%. I don't feel as strong, I don't feel as energized. So I'm actually at a disadvantage personally by doing fasted training. And in terms of fasted cardio, look, I'm just gonna say it's not really a thing. Tying into that is that you need to do cardio to lose fat. So I know a lot of people, the first kind of step is that they're like, I want to lose fat, I'm going to start doing cardio every day or going for runs. I won't do my weight training, but I'm just going to do bulk cardio or classes and things like that. Cardio doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to burn more calories in any period of time. It is a great tool to add down the track if you need to increase your energy expenditure, so in terms of burning more calories, but primarily, weight-based training actually burns more calories in a 24-hour period than cardio. So if you are looking at working on like toning up and losing body fat, resistance-based training is actually more beneficial because you'll retain muscle mass while you're in a calorie deficit, so you won't lose your shape and you'll burn more calories. If you need to, you can add cardio down the track, but it's absolutely not something that you need to be doing in order to lose fat. On the topic of losing fat, in terms of abs, a lot of people think that they need to be doing ab work in order to get abs. So in part, yes, this is true. You know, weighted crunches and any kind of core work will help to build your abdominal muscles, but it's not necessarily going to give you abs because you need to have a lower body fat to be able to see the muscle. So in terms of how to get abs or get some definition through your midsection, you definitely need to be losing body fat. Next one is that heavy weights are gonna make you bulky. So I feel like people don't really think this is as much of a thing as they used to, but trust me, it is really difficult for females to gain a large amount of muscle mass, and you need to really be eating in a big calorie surplus in order to build muscle. So if your goal is fat loss, don't be scared of lifting weights. It's gonna burn more calories and it's gonna help you to retain the muscle mass that you do have while you're in a calorie deficit. All right, next myth is that HIIT-based cardio is more effective than low-intensity steady state. So if you are trying to lose fat, firstly, you need to be in a calorie deficit, so you need to be eating less than your maintenance level. And I would recommend doing some resistance-based training. So like I've already touched on, weights-based training actually burns more calories over a 24-hour period than cardio, so that's always preferable. And on top of that, also, when you're eating in a calorie deficit, you are going to be losing weight, which means there will be some fat and there can potentially be some muscle loss at the same time. So in order to prevent that and keep as much of your muscle mass as possible while you're dieting, you want to make sure that you're doing resistance-based training. Now, if you're adding in cardio and you're choosing between HIIT and low intensity steady state, there's definitely a place for both. I would say HIIT is great if you have a very short period of time and it's only once or twice a week. 10 to 15 minutes is plenty. Do some HIIT sprints. Make sure that you're going at 110% in your on period and fully resting in your off period. But this is quite exhausting on your body. So I definitely wouldn't recommend doing it more than, say, twice a week for the average individual, just because you will probably feel quite fatigued if you're doing it properly, and you don't want that impacting your future sessions and making you feel super run down and internally stressed and fatigued, because it's actually going to have a negative effect on your health as well as probably slowing down your fat loss. So Small little bits of HIIT are great if you only have a short amount of time. If you have a little bit more time, it's actually probably preferable to do low intensity steady state. So if you have the time to do a 30, 40, even 60-minute outdoor walk, you're probably going to burn as many calories as you would doing an intense HIIT session, but it's a little bit easier on your body, and it's actually great for your mental health to get out and about and get outdoors and use it as a bit of a stress relief. So between the two, I think there's a place for both. My first point of call, if I'm adding in some cardio for my clients, would probably be steady state, because it doesn't negatively impact the rest of their training, and it's really nice to just get outside and walk. So I would say implement that first. If you absolutely need to, then you can add a tiny amount of HIIT, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's better. So our last myth is that if you stop training for a period of time, your muscle will turn into fat. So firstly, they are two completely separate tissues. One does not turn into the other. If you do stop training for an extended period of time, yes, you will probably lose a little bit of muscle mass. And if you're not controlling your nutrition, you're probably going to gain a little bit of body fat. But one doesn't turn into the other. So in terms of taking a break from training, whether that's, you know, going on a long holiday or if you're unwell, don't worry too much about losing muscle mass. Once you start training again, that existing muscle tissue that you did have will probably build itself back up again fairly quickly, probably quicker than if you were to build new muscle from scratch, if that makes sense. But you're not going to lose muscle super quickly if you miss like 1 week of training or, you know, a few sessions here and there. It does take a few weeks for your muscles to start to disappear, at a very minimum. I wouldn't stress about losing a whole bunch of muscle if you're just taking a week off if you're sick. So definitely just get straight back into it when you can. Sometimes you might feel like you look like your muscles aren't as full. If you're not using them, the fluid that is held within your muscle cells can kind of go away, and as soon as you start training again, they come back. So you'll find that after a few days of training, you actually look exactly like you did previously if you've only had a short break. That is the last of my myth busting for the day. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure that you're subscribed to my channel. I am trying to get a little bit more regular with my vlogging and my informative videos, so we'll see how that goes. But I appreciate your time today, and I'll catch you in the next video.